What's up everybody and welcome to this new album ranking video today. Apologies by the way if I sound a bit hoarse. I assure you, I'm not a horse, I'm still Zach, but bad joking aside, I'm a bit ill, so if I sound like shit, that'll be why. In this Discog ranking series, we have covered a great many subgenres of metal and rock, but one subgenre that has evaded this series until now is symphonic power metal. But luckily today we are going to be changing that trend and are going to be tackling the great Sonata Arctica. One of the very best in their field. I believe that their splash of mellow and symphonic power metal is really unique, and they are one of the best bands that I've heard ever. They're extremely creative, extremely prolific. They released their 11th album last year, so we're going to be covering their discography today. And we're going to be ranking all of their albums in order. And we're going to begin at the 11th spot on the list with Unia. It's a pretty good album, but this one out of their entire catalogue stands out the least to me. But it does have some great moments. In Black and White is such a cool eerie note to open the album with some gorgeous riffs and atmosphere. Paid in Full is catchy, and the symphonic hooks in it are just really fun and creative. For the Sake of Revenge is back to that creepy atmosphere with some serene and dense synths. And the key work in that song gives it an almost gothic feel. It Won't Fade has a cool ethereal tone, has a great rhythm as well, that song. Under Your Tree feels peaceful and relaxing. Caleb is another great song. It's chuggy, groovy, and great vocal hooks in that one too. The Vice has really dense, groovy chugs to it. And then the song My Dream's But a Drop of Fuel for a Nightmare is a song name that took me a few tries to memorize. But that song goes all over the place. I really enjoyed listening to that one. It goes from energetic to mellow to groove laden. Does a great many things, that song. Harvest is a cool power metal forward song. Words Forgotten, Words Forgiven, and Fly with the Black Swan are a little bit forgettable for me. And then Good Enough is Good Enough is a sweet and somber ending. This album has a spooky atmosphere, which is an interesting new direction for the band that they took at the time, but it loses my attention here and there with its final few songs on this record. Otherwise, it's a great attempt. I did have fun listening to this one, but unfortunately it did land last place due to the other 10 just being that little bit better for me. Speaking of, now we move on to the number 10 spot with The Ninth Hour. It starts off very strong with a song that is very nostalgic for me, Closer to an Animal. A true power metal earworm, one of the first songs of theirs I'd heard. Life is big and such a grandiose opening riff. The triumphant riffs and melodies in there are so good. Fairy Tale, Rhizonite, and The Elephant are three truly strong symphonic power metal moments for the record. They are extremely catchy. We Are What We Are has a really soothing power ballad approach. Same with Among the Shooting Stars. Till Death Done Us Apart is fun, but to me a little bit forgettable. Fly, Navigate, Communicate has great drum work, and the chug going back to the slower, groovy approach they had on their previous albums. I really enjoy all that, and then when the song just explodes and goes lightning fast at the 3-minute mark, that one was a really fun listen, that song. Candle Lawns is another attempt at a power ballad, and though the song itself is a wee bit so-so, I did enjoy the piano work in it. This album gives us a sequel to White Pearl Black Oceans. It's an epic song off of an earlier album of theirs, but it is a sequel to that song that is very much needed. It is something that I didn't know I needed to hear, but it pays off so much musically and sonically. I was very impressed with this. I will say though, maybe it didn't need to be 10 minutes is my only thing. And then On the Fault Line is a really fun note to end the album on. But objectively, all they've done is steal the same melodies and lyrics from Closer to an Animal, but twisted it into like sounding a completely different song. Like it's so much more slower, serene and mellow, dripping with atmosphere. And I really enjoyed this choice to close on a note like that, where it links back to the top of the album. I think it was a very smart decision. But yeah, overall, The Ninth Hour was pretty damn good. I remember enjoying it a lot more when I was younger, but I still had a lot of fun revisiting it because it had been a while, and it was nice to gain a new appreciation to songs on there that I maybe didn't give its time of day back in the day. But now we move on to my 9th favourite Sonata Arctica album. We have The Days of Grays. This one, I've heard, hasn't got that much love, and I've never understood that. Granted, it's only landed at 9 in a list of 11, but for me, there are some great tracks on here. Death Aura swings in with some catchy, beautiful, doom-laden melodies that just turn triumphant during the song. Last Amazing Grays is an earworm and a true power metal anthem. Flag in the Ground has such a heavy power metal approach, and such a hooky chorus too. Breathing is slow and melancholy, and one of my favourite power ballads from the band, probably. Zeros is dense and chuggy with groove. Dead Skin has some sweet key work as well. Some great riffs in the back half of that song as well. The song Juliet also has some really sick, like, synths in that song. No Dream Can Heal a Broken Heart as well. I really enjoyed the vocal melodies in there. It was a pretty good one as well. And then the song As If the World Wasn't Ending. That one, like, slows the pace down and focuses on mellow, powerful hooks. Everything Fades to Grey continues that really sweet, somber mood, but then it, like, swells up to become triumphant. And then In the Dark is a decent closer, but not as epic as the rest of the album it follows for me. I feel like there could have been such a stronger closing track for this album, which, to be honest, it's the closing track that kind of lets this one down. For oftentimes, the most important thing when it comes to albums is the closing track needs to end strong, because otherwise that's the final note you're closing on, and if it isn't as great as the rest of the album, then you're kind of let down a little bit, or at least I am. But besides that, it was a cracking album. The Days of Grays. Excellent stuff. Now we move on to my 8th favourite Sonata Arctica album, Winterheart's Guild. Let's just get straight into the tracks. Abandoned, Pleased, Brainwashed, Exploited is the song name for this one. That opening track kicks the doors in and sets a really good pace for the record. The tempo is heavy and yet it's catchy, and I enjoy the bridge in that song too. Graven Image builds a cool atmosphere. It's a great song with great fast and mellow parts. Very epic. The Cage is a power metal banger. The drum beat and European power metal riffs are just absolutely excellent. And as for Silver Tongue, great bouncy hooks in that one. And then The Misery is a sweet and somber moment for the album that is very much needed. And then Victoria's Secret has sweet sugary riffage and melodies and a chorus that's just so catchy. Champagne Bath, the riffage that kicks this one off is awesome. The guitars in that one as well are brilliant, if you ask me. Broken, as well, is a cool groovy moment for the album. Takes its time to switch up the pace. And then the rest of the song Belongs to Me and Ruins of My Life pick up the tempo again for the album, which leads perfectly into the closer, Draw Me, which is a sweet, mellow final note to close on. It was very appropriate. The whole album has stuff to enjoy on every track, I feel. It doesn't have as many highs as albums above this one on my list, but there's nothing sonically in this album that I would probably change. I think it works very, very well throughout the whole thing. But there we go. That was Winterheart's Guild. Now we move on to their newest album, Clear, Cold, Beyond. Okay, obviously recency bias could be at play here, but allow me this. I really enjoyed this new release. People around the world rejoiced that Sonata Arctica returned to their power metal roots. And I did too, frankly, but the album that came before it that got so much hate, which we will get to, I feel it wasn't warranted. I feel like that album was good. But I will say, as I return to their power metal sound, Clear, Cold, Beyond delivers and then some. First in line, the first single, a great choice. Absolutely fucking energetic, symphonic, the chugging melodies, just such a great mission statement for the album. It is. First in Line is an excellent song. California keeps the breakneck pace of the power metal really, really strong as well. Shamat brings some chilling atmosphere to the record. Dark Empath goes for an intense symphonic moment, creates a really mystical vibe. And then No Cure for Everything recaptures a really powerful, triumphant melody. And then the song Monster Only You Can't See is chuggy with some swooning guitars. And a lovely chorus on that song as well for me. Love it. Beautiful key work in Teardrops. Great synth work in Angel Defied. And then the beautiful lush guitar leads in The Best Things. so gorgeous. And then the title track sends out the album, and it does that so beautifully. Goes for a slower, more anthemic approach overall. I will also say with Clear Cold Beyond, this is the fastest and heaviest album the band has ever done. I know that's a bold statement, but I think even their earlier albums had a bigger emphasis on the symphonic element as opposed to the power metal element. So even at a time this late in their career where their main marketing approach for their newest one is that they're returning to their roots, I'd say instead they're going back to their roots, seeing the energy they had, and then somehow managing to go harder than they ever have before. Bar a couple moments where the album like breaks up the pace so you can breathe a bit with some more soothing, somber moments, the album is just overall so much faster than I think the band have pulled off so successfully. And if it were for just the fast, intense heaviness this album has out of their career, it wouldn't have landed this high. It's also because of their skilled songwriting they have at this stage in their career that makes this album hit for me even more. It's just impressive this is their latest album, I guess is what I'm getting at here. But yeah, now we move on to the 6th spot with Reckoning Night. This is a very popular one, and for good reason. The opening track, Misplaced, explodes with no prelude as well. A fast rhythm and tempo, just instant hook. Blinded No More has a fun groove, power, metal fusion with some really gorgeous melodies. Ain't Your Fairy Tale is a symphonic power metal banger with stupid fast riffs as well. Janny must have hummingbird wings for pick hands. It's ridiculous. Reckoning Day, Reckoning Night is a fun interlude as well. It builds the atmosphere. It maybe doesn't need to be 3 minutes long, but it still works for the concept of the album. I love how it leads into the next track. Don't Say a Word is one of my favourite songs by this band. The hooks, the melody, the bridge. And then as for the song Boy Who Wanted to Be a Real Puppet, hilarious song name, by the way, has some really awesome drum parts and symphonic moments. The chorus and melodies in My Celine, or Selene, I don't know how you pronounce that song, is so beautiful and catchy. That song is just completely gorgeous. I love when the bass and drums first kick in with Wildfire. It's so catchy and heavy. And then White Pearl, Black Oceans is a near 9-minute epic. Such an amazing song. And then Shamadali, if that's how you say that song name, if it's not, I can only apologise, starts humbly with piano, but then throughout it gets more and more epic. That one is an especially strong closer for this band. But there we go. That was Reckoning Night, another fucking excellent album from this band. And now we move on to the top 5. At the 5th spot, we have Pariah's Child. Once again, another great album. I think what I like most about this album is the variety from song to song. The Wolves Die Young is one of the band's strongest opening tracks for me. It's anthemic and catchy as hell. Running Lights is fast and fun, energetic, great cheer up song for me at least. Take One Breath keeps that momentum with some great rhythm and angelic key work, I would say. Cloud Factory is a fun, upbeat, catchy song as well. Definitely one of the standouts on here. As for Blood, speaking of standout, starts with a cool, creepy atmosphere that I really enjoy. Great power metal, like anthemic moment on here. My only complaint with that song is I wish we got more. I wish we sunk more into that creepy tone that we had in the opening minutes of it. As for the song What Did You Do in the War, Dad, has really catchy rhythm work and really cool hooks. Love the solo in that song as well. Half a Marathon Man is fun and uplifting, both with the bright riffs and the lyrics. X Marks the Spot has some super fun boogie field riffs, if that's how you describe them. And the spoken word in that song isn't annoying, it's kind of more intriguing. Sometimes bands are known to overdo it with their spoken word moments, but I think it works for this song. I love the power ballad approach in the song Love. And then Larger Than Life is just a 10-minute epic that sends off this album on such a high point. Excellent stuff. Once again, I'll say, excellent album. No notes. And now I move on to the 4th spot on this list. We have Talviyo, or Talviyo, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, I never have been able to. This is the one that often gets overlooked. This is the one that got a lot of hate because it didn't have the power metal stuff that people wanted from the band. But I'm here to tell you, don't be a sheep. This album has so much going for it. Doesn't need to be fast and heavy to be a good album. Just gotta quickly say that, okay? I also have a strong nostalgia attached to this album because this was the first one the band released that I was present for as it was happening. I was kind of there for Ninth Hour, but this one I was hyping it up in my head, and then it dropped on the day and I spammed it. The first track, Message from the Sun, has admittedly quite a fast pace and joyful upbeat hooks. Love the chorus in that song too. Whirlwind and Cold both work to build a gorgeously rich and chilling mood to this album. Storm the Armada keeps the dense, sorrowful dissonance on the previous two songs with such a chilling tone as well. So haunting and atmospheric as well. Bloody love Storm the Armada. It's one of the best songs they've ever written, in my opinion. Last of the Lambs is creepy and slow and more cinematic. Who Failed the Most and Demon Cage create bittersweet melodies throughout the both of them. And then Demon's Cage has great bass and piano work. Ismo's Got Great Reactors is a really fun instrumental track, which I'll be honest is just a glorified excuse for the band to show off their technical prowess, and I can't really blame them for it because goddamn, A Little Less Understanding is such an earworm of a song. And then the serene vibes in The Raven Still Flies is just so beautiful. And then to end on The Garden, such a peaceful ballad. It was honestly a really good choice. Like I say, people hate on this one because it's not power metal, which honestly, that whole statement I don't even agree with. There are definitely power metal moments on here, but I also enjoy and respect that the band decided to shift directions and make music that they truly believed in. This record has a stronger emphasis on moods and atmosphere, and I really appreciate that approach. I think it also really works, at least for me it does. But there you go, that was my number 4 spot. Now, we move on to my third favourite album. We have The Stones' Grow Her Name. This one, I've always had an interesting relationship with. For the longest time, always overlooked it. And to be honest, I haven't ever given it a chance, and I'll get onto that when I get onto the song that's responsible for that. But this one crept up on me. When going through their discography in order of release, and then I got to this one, I was very surprised how much I enjoyed it, because I expected this one to rank like last place or something. But I'm happy to report that I did really enjoy it on this listen. So much so that it landed above all the previous ones that I mentioned here so far, which definitely shocked me. But anywho, I love the opening bass in the song Only the Broken Hearts Make You Beautiful. The lead riff is great as well. Shitload of Money, though the song name is a bit weird / a bit dumb. It has a really catchy rhythm. Pretty straightforward rocker, but I appreciated it for what it is. Losing My Insanity is a fun catchy banger. Great chorus in there as well. Somewhere Close to You kicks off with some cool riffs and some awesome vocal melodies. But I Have a Right is a song that's always annoyed me. It's one of the band's most popular songs, and I've never really enjoyed it at all. The lead vocal hook in that song just annoys me a bit. The tempo in this song is a bit sluggish, and the fact that this was the hit off of the album is actually a shame, because most of the rest of the album is actually not that bad, but this is always the song I think about when I see that album art, right? Because that's the most famous song, definitely the most successful song. And I just can't stand it. It's a song that I've never really enjoyed all that much. Granted, I didn't hate it on this list, and it's just there. I just don't understand why it's popular as a song, really. I'd much prefer any other song off this record but that one. For example, Alone in Heaven is a melancholy song. It sounds like a matured version of something off of The Days of Grays or Unia. The Day has a ethereal atmosphere. And then the song Cinderblocks takes a hard left turn for the album and decides to use a banjo to create a spaghetti western moment, which I was not surprising, but was very, very pleased with the creativity of it. Don't Be Mean is a serene ballad as well. Love my ballads from this band, so no complaints here. And I enjoy the orchestral elements in that song as well. I think it really works. And then the album goes out with what can only be described as a proggy note, with the sequel and threequel, if you will, to Wildfire. With Wildfire Part 2 and Part 3, where they chuck every single musical ingredient they've tried so far as a band and chuck it in the vat and mix it together and see what works. And most of it does work for me as a 2-part closer for this album. Like I say, epic closer. Unfortunately, until now, I've never felt the need to go back and revisit this album, but after discovering it, finally going through it properly from track 1 to closing, I've realised just how many gems on this record that I've been missing out on that aren't I Have a Right. There's so much variety on this album, and I had a great time listening to this album on this occasion. Really surprised me how much I enjoyed it. There's so many great experiments on this album. I like it when a band takes risks, and that's what this album felt like. But now we move on to my second favourite album by this band. We have Silence. Now, it was quite close, admittedly, closer than I expected it would be, but here we go. So Silence is my second favourite. The opening track of Silence is a cool atmospheric intro piece that builds right into Wahlbergy, if that's how you pronounce that song name, and it builds into that song really well. And speaking of that next song, lightning fast, true power metal, just heaviness and oomph to it. False News travels fast, has great atmosphere and vocal hooks. End of this chapter breaks up the breakneck speed for a more groovier moment. The riffs in Black Sheep as well are just so awesome, and I love the solo in that song. Land of the Free has great chugging rhythm. Last Drop Falls is a very powerful ballad. Love that gorgeous tone in it. San Sebastian and Wolf and Raven are both so fast-paced and shreddy. Sing in Silence is a fun, slower, atmospheric piece. The riff work in Revelantelet, if that's how you say that, is brilliant and entrancing. Tallulah is a ballad that is so reserved and gentle, and the piano work in there make it even more so. The lead riff in Respect the Wilderness is brilliant, and I love the vocal hooks in that song too. And then the album has a really strong closer, once again, with The Power of One. But I will say about that song, it hits some of the same notes of their previous album's closer with Destruction Preventer, an album that we'll get to very, very quickly, don't worry. I feel like The Power of One is a bit of retread from that closer, unfortunately for me. But an extremely fun listen. Very much enjoy this album. When I marathoned their Discog in prep for this video, I did not expect how close this album would be to my number one. My number one being Ecliptica, which is upside down. I've gone on record saying this is one of my favourite albums of all time, and it's still it's up there for sure. It's still one of my favourites. But like I say, I was shocked how close Silence was to this one, but this one still won out, because of course it did. Every single track on here is perfect. I wouldn't change a thing about this album, frankly. But let's go through it. Blank File kicks the doors in. Straight away. No bullshit. Just Rochambeau, here you go. Killer power metal. My Land is just a perfect song. So empowering in tone and such a catchy chorus. My Land is one of my favourite songs of all time. As for the riffage in Eighth Commandment, just insanely fast and heavy. Replica is a shining example of how to successfully create a power ballad that is somber and yet triumphant without sounding too melodramatic. Kingdom for a Heart is so jolly, it's so charming, it's so upbeat and fun to listen to, and the lead riff is just so whimsical. I love that song. And then the song Full Moon. It speaks for itself, frankly. It is a power metal staple for a reason. Letter for Dana is a beautifully somber and yet dramatic, humble note on the album. And I like that the melodies on this song return at the end as a nice full circle moment to close the album. I love the symphonic elements mixed with the guitar in Unopened. As for Picturing the Past, it's honestly quite thrashy for an album that's full of power and symphonic metal. The riff writing in there is really what gives it its energy for me. As for Destruction Preventer, a song that I briefly mentioned earlier, honestly, no notes. It's a perfect closer. No matter which version you choose of this album, you can't go wrong. The 15-year anniversary one, this version, the remaster, the original one, you really can't go wrong. It's a killer album through and through. Made somehow even better with its bonus tracks, if you include any of those in there. Like Mary Lou, fucking excellent song. I Can't Dance is like groovy and like jammy. And then I'm Haunted is another power metal / symphonic moment that is so welcome. Everything on this album really works for me, which is why It's my #1 album of this band. Shock horror. Even though this band has been pigeonholed with being symphonic, with being power metal, honestly, you can't really pin this band down. They've carved out a very distinguished sound in the metal and power metal scene, which really can't be replicated by any other band. Even if another band uses those same elements, it won't hit the same as it does when you listen to an album from this band, which is why this band has always stood out to me ever since I discovered them. And yeah, what talent. They are songwriting masters in their own class. And there we go. That has been me ranking Sonata Arctica's discography for you today. So once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much. Goodbye.